Welcome everyone to Tech Open Air 17.
Much has happened these past few years.
I think that today we are experiencing a real revolution.
Everyone's talking about blockchains.
Freedom of speech and activism.
It's the freedom of expression.
What is the human context?
Medical technology that will make you biologically 20 or 30 again.
How do you feel? You've just sacked half of Berlin.
We are, in fact, the last generation of humans that still remember what life was like before the internet.
You've got to check out the House of Tech.
The technology is changing our life.
Science fiction is becoming science fact. The next big thing is not the thing.
Do check out the satellite events if you haven't done so.
Berlin is unique.
The culture, the feeling.
I've been inspired since I've been here the last 2 days.
I always wind up meeting someone who I never would have expected to collaborate with.
At TOA, we see technology very holistically by connecting technologists with representatives of different disciplines like music, art, science. We help those who are being disrupted by technology better anticipate the future, and those who disrupt with technology better understand the world they change.
So the next talk is going to be one of these TOA-esque moments. So that does things that you only would get at TOA. So the next speaker are the co-founders from SSS Lab and Humanculus.tech and others. The talk has this great name of Alexa, what did my grandma's house smell like? So this is about senses and memory and tech, so very emotional. Who is coming? Sissel Tolaas is working actively on diverse aspects of the topics of sense and has completed 52 city smellscapes, or landscape of smells, research projects within the last 20 years. And Fritz Strempel is an artist at heart, but an entrepreneur in mind. And he designs how he wants the world of the future to feel like by creating tech and architecture, narratives, and experiences. So please open your senses, open your emotional memory sections, and give a warm welcome for Sissel Tolaas and Fritz Strempel.
Hello. Hello. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Can you smell me?
Thank you, and thank you especially for spending the next half an hour with us today. We are here to talk about the human senses. To talk about the human senses at a technology festival, of course. The human senses is the most advanced, the most natural, and yet the least understood information technology that we know today. And in order to prove to you how powerful this data collection machinery called the senses is, I'm going to just perform a very quick exercise with you. I want you to just close your eyes for a moment, and while I will tell you something, you try to remember it. Close your eyes, and when you have a memory for what I'm saying, raise your hands. Close your eyes. Everyone close your eyes? Yes. Think yourself as a young child, around that age where you have your first actual memories. Yeah? Think about the atmosphere of your parents. Think about your grandparents' apartment. Who of you know exactly that particular smell that you always have whenever you reached your grandparents' apartment? Raise your hand.
Oh.
Yes, that's quite a lot.
Quite a lot.
Yes, open your eyes. Yeah, quite a lot. Keep your hands up. Next question. Who of you, especially for those that may not have raised their hands yet, who of you remembers that smell, that very particular smell of the first summer rains hitting the warm streets? Yes, that's more. Almost all hands are up. Yes. And that is just to prove to you very quickly that those memories were created much before you had the linguistic skills to describe them It's data that you have collected before you had the ability to analyze it consciously. So whatever that smell of your grandparents' home was, maybe it was the upholstery, the dusty upholstery, maybe it was the warm bread and the linen cloth, maybe it was also, and most probably, a particular type of detergent that she used. These are memories of high emotional value for all of you.
For the rest of your life.
And the senses, and that is very important to understand, they are creating memories with emotional relevance, much before you had the ability to analyze the specific data. This is how we perceive the world through the senses. So, we are asking today, what does that have to do with technology? And we've asked Alexa, if she can remember. Alexa, what is the smell of grandma's home? Whoops, she's not answering. There she's answering.
I don't have the ability to smell. It's a blessing and a curse.
Well, while she may say that she doesn't have the ability to smell and she's happy about that, we can of course say, of course technology has the ability to smell. And technology, whenever technology is smelling, it may look like this and have incredible sensors to detect what kind of odors are around. This machine even claims to be able to detect the scent of cancer, and they provide us with these incredible charts, you know, the components of each smell. They can even map what the smell of your grandmother's apartment smelled like at what particular location. So all this information comes from smelling technology. And whereas the other memory of yours was highly emotional, this type of memory, this type of analysis gives us contextual relevance. So we have those two different perspectives on the perception of our surroundings. And this points at this strong dichotomy that we all feel in this room coming to a tech festival. We always feel this ambiguity of our body, our natural evolution, and technology. We're all fond of these developments, but we all feel like, will this progress help our body to be healthy? Will it be good for us, or what are the dangers? So based on this strong dichotomy, this even enmity that people feel, we stand here to talk about how to get those two worlds closer together. Because what we think, that we believe to perceive the way that this man in the blue helmet perceives the world. And technology perceives the world like it does here, with beautiful sensors. So we usually think about senses versus sensors. That's why we're here, because it is our agenda to rethink how we progress technology for and with the human body, for and with the human senses, because we have the strong belief that the more high-tech the future is, if we do this right, it can mean that we ourselves become more low-tech, more natural than we have ever been before. If I say our agenda, let me take the time to finally introduce ourselves. So next to me is Sissel Tolaas, artist, world-renowned artist, of course, smell pioneer, Harvard professor for invisible communication, and yes, she's the one who made cheese from David Beckham's sweat. Not only, I think also Bill Gates, no?
Kind of.
Yes. And down there, that's just me in the lab there, currently interning in Utopia. We are here to talk with you tech people to keep in mind that the senses provide everything. They enable everything that is important to us. Memory, they create emotional relevance. I just said that. Without the senses, there's no social interaction, no learning, no understanding. We're not motivated. We don't feel what we know as identity. We cannot feel love, hate, fear, anger. We cannot be attended to anything. We can have no contemplation, no sex. There's no health, no navigation, you name it. The senses are the most advanced data technology that we know. And among the senses, when we talk about technology, we need to talk about smell. To give you just one number to see the scale of what kind of interactions we can create before Sissel will talk about smell. Technology can differentiate between two factors, 1 and 0. Your eyes have just a handful of different light receptors that translate whatever we see into the biochemical language of the brain. But only inside your nose, there are hundreds and hundreds of different smell receptors that can differentiate between countless different smells. So this is the scale and the potential that we have when we create technology for the senses. I will talk to that about that in a minute, but let Sissel take you on a journey through the senses. Have you all received those paper sticks? Yes? Okay. Sissel, please.
Yes. Anyway, your nose has just been activated and coded. Don't forget this very moment, because you will be reminded of it later during this talk. Off I went 20 years ago, trying to explore the world from the perspective of the nose, discovering a different dimension to the reality I already thought I knew very well. Discovering levels of information that was essential for me understanding who I was, where I was, and in general, the planet I was inhabiting. Here you see me doing field work all over the planet, building up substantial archives, collecting, recording invisible information that's in the air we breathe all the time, full time. 24,000 times a day, we are breathing. We are moving 12.7 cubic meter air with our breathing only. We breathe in and out, except for the beginning and the end of life. All this information contained in smell molecules end up in our subconsciousness in the quickest processing in the brain and stay there for the rest of your life. The first time you smell something, like in this case, these abstract molecules you are just smelling, is essential for you to add a content code to the smell and learn from that content and have it as a reference till you die. And there's nowhere in the world where you can relearn your take on that reference. And this is essential for human being and animals and other species on the planet Earth. Unfortunately, humans only smell conscious in the beginning of life. Later, we smell subconsciously. We are very aware of that the air that surrounds us contains information. This has been explored in many ways. We walk through cities, we see each other, we rely mostly on what we see. The interface eye is the most used on the human body. We are equipped with amazing interfaces called the senses, but unfortunately, we are not challenging them enough, and soon they will stop being there. If we don't train them properly, that's the end of mankind. The biggest illness of our time is disembodiment. And I think before technology takes over completely, we need to change that. I've been trying to change that. Navigate through using smell is essential to how I understand the world. I put molecules to navigate me to campus, enable also disability people with disability to find sites, find each other, and find a source of where they are heading. This is a unique way, using another sense to navigate through life. We can use smell as not only protect ourselves, communicate awareness, communicate, look at me, smell me, and be aware of my existence. We can also develop smells, smell codes that can tell the opposite. Please stay away. Leave me alone, for God's sake. We don't have to say the rude word, stay away. We just put on the smell molecules that would accomplish the mission. You are free for talking for hours if you want. I've done a project looking, if you look at the slides, a ring that communicates attraction, distraction, attention. Literally, you just open the device and the smell do the job. This I have taken to a more serious project in India, where I'm developing a smell of self-defense against sexual harassment. You have a small device, you push a button if you're about to be attacked. And the smell invades the entire surrounding. And the attacker will have molecules on their skin and their garments forever. So these are new ways of looking into how smell can be used for a purpose, a functional smell, a coding with smell, and beyond. Beyond the perfuming of spaces and perfuming lobbies and bodies, this is science that accomplishes us to understand the notion of smell in a more proper way and apply to functionality in all aspects of life on the planet we live on. Another project that I've been involved in and is still doing is smell and memory. As you all know, smell and memory is very essential to understanding life. And you just demonstrated that you are interested in this process. 100% of smell memory remain after 1 year. 30% of visual memory remain after 3 months. And this is amazing. So why couldn't we use this properly to educate our children, to render a memory? You know, we are snapping our life away with smartphones. We don't even know where we were. We look at the photo and say, huh, was I there? Who are those people? I mean, this is not healthy. So this device called Smell Memory Kits literally give a moment, a person, an event, an experience, an abstract molecule, like you've just been smelling now. This molecule is coded for this very talk and for this very event. So whenever later you want to recall this moment, you just open another capsule and the moment is there full time. This can be done with learning. In the past, before any kind of computing system, that's how scientists learn hardcore information, formula and the like. They learn in the context of a smell, and whenever they want to recall the formula, they went back to the corner or wherever the smell was placed, and it was back in quick time. So again, you have been coded. Later in this talk, you will understand what it means to be coded. And hopefully, this smell will make you never forget your sense of smell and your senses in general. The most sophisticated interfaces in the world, any kind of sensors, are still fighting to compete with our senses, specifically the sense of smell. I don't think ever there will be digital nose that can accomplish what the human nose can. We can identify up to trillion smell. To have technology, we need up to trillion components. My lab contains 6,000, and my skill in chemistry enabled me to multiply those components to a little bit more, but still, I'm fighting to replicate reality properly for the purpose to understand it accordingly. So you are coded, and you will understand the necessity of the information that is connected to smell. And maybe before you leave this room, you learn something, and you will walk around in the campus smelling each other rather than looking at each other. And I think now we move on to the next chapter. It's going to be exciting. Just wait.
So, that actually is a very important slide. What Sissel has just told you, there is a particular smell molecule that can navigate you when you're blind, so you find your way. There is a particular smell molecule that can recall a particular memory. Yes, please.
I need to say one point. Is coding, what I mean here, I need to give you a reference so that you get it. In 1829, there was a huge accident in Texas. Gas don't smell. During that, because of that accident, gas got a smell code. So whenever gas is leaking, you smell it. This coding had to be learned. I think everybody on planet Earth that are dealing with gas know this code. And this is what I mean with coding abstract molecule, giving content code to an abstract smell. Recall that very moment when you want to gain that information back again.
Absolutely. And that's actually a very amazing example for what I was just saying. You see, everyone knows the smell of gas. There is no smell of gas. It is artificially put inside for you to be careful. Because everyone who smells gas knows either you better run or you take precautions that the whole place doesn't explode.
But it's very important that these smell codings are abstract molecules, because as soon as you have a concrete, like lemon, apple, whatever. Everybody's references to those smells are very individual. I think MIT did a project at Wall Street where they tried to put a smell in, indicating market go up, and the other when it went down. The apple was the smell of up, lemon was the went down. Of course, the banker was sitting around, where's the apple? Where's the lemon? So it didn't work. So the mission was not accomplished.
The mission was not accomplished, and that's why abstract smell molecules are very important for smell coding. So you have one molecule and one functionality of your body, one memory, one activity, one, you name it, that we can do with smell coding. So let's go to the next chapter, the senses and technology. How do they work together? How can we use what Sissel has just told us about her decades of research when we develop technology? We got approached by a tech company from automotive industry with a very broad question. They were asking, what impact can the senses have while our cars become more autonomous? Very broad question, right? Our answer was very simple. The senses can reduce accidents. We said, let's create sensory intelligent interfaces between the car and the human senses in order to deal with the dilemma of the cars becoming more autonomous but not driving fully autonomously yet. So attention levels are going down while we still are on the road. How do we deal with that? In order to answer this question very simply, let's have a look at the evolution of senses. Let's go back one step. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, when our species developed, this worked in the same way as today. Whenever there was a fire, a specific smell molecule filled the air. We pick it up with our nose, and there's a specific function to it, and that, in the case of fire, is alertness. Why? Because at the end of the day, you need to run away. This is evolution. So, what we learn from this, one particular smell molecule makes us run away, makes us be alert, all senses on, so we protect ourselves. That's one thing. Let's look at what technology has enabled us to do. This is the map of Indianapolis. All the fields that are marked in red are street crossings and areas with extremely high risk of car accidents, live, real time, for the next couple of minutes. How does it work? There's, of course, it works with data. So we combine human mobility data historically, who went where, when. We combine it with traffic accident data, who had an accident, where. Did the car crash? Were there any fatal injuries? And we feed this into deep architecture training. We combine it with your position, where you are at the moment. And what we get is a risk prediction model that is able to predict us where exactly the accidents will happen in the next couple of minutes. So, in history, that meant whenever we were sleeping in the forest and there was a bushfire starting, we need the molecules to know, oh God, we better run. Nowadays, that's something else. We don't live in the forest anymore. It means we need to be careful for our accidents. So, effectively, you do the math, very simple. What we have created is a sensory intelligent interface. How does it work? We have one abstract molecule that is coded for attention, that is put in a device that works with the air conditioning of the car. So whenever you enter an area with high risk of accidents, like a street crossing, this molecule is distributed through the air conditioning and makes you alert, all senses on, before the risk of accident actually appears. So very effectively, what we have done is we have taken what data and technology is providing us with, and we connect it with the human body with the most natural interface that evolution has given us. With an incredible impact, of course. That is, we are more alert whenever we need it to. I'm not showing you this example to impress you with the technology. I'm showing you this example in order to impress you with how simple this technology is. As long as you keep in mind how your senses work whenever you develop technologies. So this is an example of very sensory, highly intelligent interfaces. And this obviously creates the question, are we, with our bodies, ready to deal with sensory intelligent technologies? Or, like we all have a feeling, does technology channel the use of our senses and reduce them to very few types of interactions? And that is why we are presenting you one of our projects that we're working on today, and that is sensory intelligence training. So we need to look at the other side too, not only at technology, but at the human body. And Sissel will tell you a little bit more about the Fitness Sense project.
So we are training our bodies in all aspects of training. We are training our muscles. We don't always know why we do it, but the world out there tells us we should be fit, keep beautiful, and be strong for whatever comes across. Nowhere we learn how to keep our senses fit. We don't learn our kids to train their senses according to how they potentially could use them. We learn maybe in kindergarten, the only way you can understand the world is by touching, smelling, tasting, eating earth, etc. And we have tolerance towards that process. But as soon as we start primary school, that disappear completely. And I think that's a big mistake. We have to educate our children and our people on this planet to become alert, using all the senses properly. But when we haven't started that process early enough in life, we need some help. Unfortunately, there are no kind of rehab for sensory deprivation, but maybe the future could come up with sensory training centers, the way you train your muscles. You will sign in to train one by one sense, and also combination of the senses properly with experts and with scientists, all fields, to be assured that you improve, and the outcome will be for your own benefit and for the benefit of the world.
Yeah, so let me take you a little bit through how that works. The Fitness Sense is a highly immersive, high-tech training gym for the senses. At first, you get an analysis of what the sensory ability actually are. How good is your sense of smell? How can you differentiate between different types of pressures when touching? The second step is an analyzing. You are getting visualized how, oh, you're seeing it there, perfect. How is your actual capability? So it means it raises your consciousness. And then in the third part, it is the actual training. In this training, these are highly high-tech installations, sometimes very analog, sometimes very high-tech, but they're all set up in order to train in the individual sense and a combination, which is basically the ability to process multisensory information at the same time. What is important about this is a lot of people are saying, if you want to train your senses, go to the forest. Yes, please go to the forest. But that's not all of it. What we need to do is we need to create artificial surroundings, artificial environments in which we are able to use the best of what technology gives us with VR, with AR, mixed reality, you name it. It doesn't matter because what we are, at the end of the day, we are creating environments of sensory reality. So in this training, you're able to deal with sensory reality instead of only VR or AR or MR or whatever are. So at the end of the day, and we're coming to an end, this is in order to become more sensory intelligent, and at the same time to gather data, to gather knowledge about how interdependent are the different senses among each other, to get knowledge about that in order to create technology that is able to deal with this incredible interface. So, finally, technology can help us to make ourselves become more analog, more human than we are now, if we do it right. To advance technology in a meaningful way, we need to connect technology to what makes us human. And that is your sensory intelligence. So to close with, I just want to have a final remark. We're all coming here together, thinking about big utopian ideas about technology. I want to leave you today with knowing that the use of your senses doesn't require a utopia, as long as you keep it in mind whenever you create technology. And finally, Sissel, please.
You will get a small gift from us.
I think it's already distributed.
Nanotechnology imprinted card, postcard. And if you touch that surface of that card, you will have the smell molecule that you had in the beginning. And please keep that card with you and maybe report back to us after 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 50 years and say, oh, we'll never forget you. We'll learn our lesson. Our nose is now on the way to be sophisticated, and we can design technology according to what we found out the nose can do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
To use your senses isn't utopia, guys. Let's go. Thank you very much.
The postcard, yes. The postcard. Are they distributing the postcard?
Yeah.
Oh, they did already. Okay.
Questions? Sissel, please.
Yes, I have a lexicon consisting of 2,500 terms around smell and the process of smelling. I've been working with smell and language for nearly 20 years. So I think it's in the future, if we are using our senses properly, we also need to change language accordingly. And again, back to education. If the senses become curriculum in schools, language is essential. The linguistic part of of the senses are very essential to move on.
Next question. Will smell tech help us upgrade my sensory setting or abilities just like animals can smell stuff earlier? Yes. The answer is yes. Not only does it help you to smell things earlier, but it helps you to use different senses for new functionalities that you haven't used the senses for. So for example, to use your sense of listening, of hearing, for spatial navigation, much more than you have done before. So it's not only about being better, but also about what we call cross-modal attention changes.
And of course, we live in a world of sensory overload. So the sensory training, intelligence training camps, I call it camps at this stage, I don't mean camp in a bad way, is an attempt to focus on the individual senses, to understand what's going on in the brain and the metabolism when a sense is active. And so wise, I mean, I changed my life by understanding how the senses work properly. And I can turn on and off my senses like I turn on and off my computer. It's amazing. And it's very playful and amazing fun to start to use your senses properly. Say, no, I want to listen to that person. No, I want to smell that other one. Instead of kind of doing everything at the same time and missing out the point. So, of course, we live in a world of sensory overload, too much of everything, not only for the senses, but for everything. So, to go back to the body, focus on what we have for free, body and the senses, everything else costs money. Take a moment and consider before you buy the next computer or device or even a detergent or a deodorant.
Thank you very much. Somebody asked how to activate the card by rubbing. Very simple.
You have to touch, implement. It's a nanotechnologies that enable the smell to stay on this card at least for 7 years. It's an amazing technology. We printed it yesterday, so it's very fresh. But if you leave it in your room, it will stop smelling, and you go back after 2-3 years, you touch the surface, and reveal this very moment. And hopefully, you'll never forget us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Sissel. Thank you. Yes, you can give me that. Perfect. Great. So, as you know, every tech